We're just about to hear from fishing crews in the northeast of England who were affected by the die-off in 2021 and are still being affected. How concerned are you by that situation?
Further investigation needs to take place to identify the cause. And I would add to that, there has very recently been additional die-offs occurring in the nephrops, the langoustine populations of Hartlepool, and I think this is disastrous.
David Jarrard there from the Shellfish Association of Great Britain. Well, fishing crews on Teesside agree with him. They say the government must reopen inquiries into the die-off of crabs and lobsters, and they say that further dredging in the area is now causing problems and affecting prawn catches. We've been reporting on the die-off off England's northeast coast for a while now. Initially, it saw thousands of crustaceans washed up on beaches in the autumn of 2021, and subsequently catches are massively down. Fishermen blamed old industrial chemicals released by dredging. DEFRA first blamed algae and then, after an inquiry, said dredging was not to blame and the deaths were most likely down to a new disease or parasite. The Environment Secretary, Therese Coffey, has ruled out further investigations. Locals are now crowdfunding to finance their own. Well, local Conservative MPs have met with Dr Coffey to talk about financial support for affected fishing crews and said that as a result, crews would now be able to access two separate funding streams. I spoke to fishermen Stan Rennie and Paul Widowfield of the North East Fishing Collective, who say that refers to existing schemes, neither of which can help them.
There's absolutely no support at the minute. Fishermen don't qualify for these schemes at all.
It's for fish processing businesses.
Yeah, if you wanted to,
like that.
If you wanted to update your freezer van or stuff like that on the big boats.
So where does that leave you?
That leaves us absolutely dead in the water in the die-off zone, and the die-off zone increases by the minute. Tens of thousands of cubic metres of toxic spoil being dumped on the 6 mile dumps and spreading from that.
DEFRA, as you know, say that the deaths are not down to that. They're down to this new disease or parasite. Paul, before this all happened, describe the fishing business you had.
Just before the die-off, we were fishing well. Like, we were fishing over Lonsca, 2-3 boxes of lobsters a day. Come a fortnight after the dredge, when we realised that we were getting absolutely nothing, well, my son Luke obviously had to go and find work ashore. Chrissy's found work ashore. So me and my other son, me now Jamie, we were working on the bigger boat, working well further off. We were starting at 9 Mile East. We were getting there a few lobsters, but the crabs were just started to be non-existent. Now we've swapped over to netting. We have to cod. We picked a few bits and bobs up, a couple of boxes of pop bit, which is whitings and addicts and all that. We scratched a little wage up, but for us, basically, fishing, I can say we finished.
Do you see a future, realistically, fishing in this area?
Inshore fishing, which is small boating, working in the die-off zone where there's basically nothing, which goes to like 2 mile out, and it's running up as far as Whitby now, and as far as easing in this end, but we don't know the aftermath of, like, after this, the big dredge.
That was the original die-off zone.
Like what I'm talking about now is for the original die-off zone, which was end of September, October 21.
So you're suggesting that on top of the original die-off zone, which obviously is still having a knock-on effect, that actually there's a new die-off zone?
Oh, yes, yeah. Well, it's been affecting the prawn lads. They're having to stay well north before they can, well, if they can get a day's work.
Stan, you're arguing here that the situation has changed and therefore the Secretary of State should reopen an inquiry.
It has changed dramatically, and especially since the capital dredge from the Freeport has been dumped on the 6 Mile. There's a new die-off zone going well up towards the weir now. Mrs Coffey says that if there was another die-off, she would open investigations. Well, you know, there's another die-off. The prawn fleet's on its knees now. So it's not just the Hartlepool potting fleet and then all down the coast on the inshore waters. The Hartlepool prawn fleet has been more or less tied up because the small day boats, they just can't steam far enough to get out the die-off zone and make enough to cover the diesel, never mind make a living.
What do you need to happen next?
In the emergency short term, there's a lot of fishermen on the knees with no savings who can't afford to go to sea. There's half the Hartlepool potting fleet already sold up. Now with the prawn grounds being in the barren die-off sacrifice area, there's already 3 prawners up for sale. Lads telling the heartbreaking story that they're going for a 5-hour tow and coming back with 4 or 5 prawns.
Stan Rennie and Paul Widowfield there of the North East Fishing Collective. A DEFRA spokesperson told us that following their inquiry, no further analysis is planned, but the extensive analytical work that's already been undertaken means we can further improve our response to any future incidents, and the Environment Agency and government scientists at CFAS stand ready to respond. They didn't directly address the issue of prawn catches. On the financial help available, they told us there'll be no specific support or compensation for crews impacted by the die-offs, but that the Fisheries and Seafood Scheme is open to those involved in catching as well as processing. It aims to boost seafood sales and support more environmentally friendly fishing practices. There is also the UK Seafood Fund, which funds projects to help modernise the industry. I'm Charlotte Smith. The studio manager is Ilse Laderman.